Good afternoon. Today is November 3rd, 2022. I am Christopher Sent, Provost of Lewis University, and this is Conversations from Stritch. President Livingston is away today. It's been a wonderful fall so far, a beautiful fall day today. The little wind, but really warm weather. This week we enjoyed Halloween, celebrated All Souls Day and All Saints Day. And this is a good week to remember that we are called to remember relatives, friends, mentors, and benefactors who we honor and remember for their loving presence in our lives. And we remember those close to home and all across the world who are victims of war, poverty, and other emergencies and calamities. It's also election week, with the final day to vote on Tuesday, November 8th for the 2022 election. Lewis was a platinum-level campus for student voting in the 2020 election, and we want to keep that streak going, and we're showing here the website for everyone interested in voting, becoming a volunteer, a poll worker, what have you. There's still need and time to vote, and so please take advantage of that and all of the resources that we have. And thank you to our faculty and students in the civic engagement group who work tirelessly to promote participation in our democratic institutions. So a little bit of news. Congratulations to Dr. Brittany Stevenson, Assistant Professor of Mathematics, who was honored with the prestigious Henry L. Alder Award for Distinguished Teaching by a beginning college or university mathematics faculty member at the National Mathematics Conference, MAA MathFest. This award honors faculty whose effectiveness in teaching undergraduate mathematics is shown to have influence beyond their own classrooms. Each year, 3 colleges or university teachers are honored with this national award, so it's a very prestigious award. Also at the same conference, 3 Lewis Mathematics faculty members and 10 student researchers attended and presented their research at the conference. Congratulations to Dr. Elizabeth Sartell, Assistant Professor in the Department of Theology, who will be presenting papers at 2 distinguished conferences this month. The first conference, Des Lettres isolées à la science des lettres, is hosted by the Institut Français de Proche-Orient, to be held in Erbil, Iraq on November 5th and 6th. It brings together scholars working in the field of the science of letters in Islam from around the world, with presentations in French, Arabic, and English. Second conference is that Dr. Sartell is presenting at is on medieval Islamic and Jewish philosophy, and is hosted by UIC on November 13th and 15th, bringing together religious studies, history, philosophy, and other international scholars who work at the intersections of Islamic and Jewish philosophy. Dr. Sartell's presentations at both conferences will focus on a comparative reading of philosophical and mystical texts by 2 medieval thinkers, Ibn Masara and Sajjad Gayan. Really great work, and we really appreciate Dr. Sartell's contributions to this international conversation about faith traditions. Congratulations to Dr. Claire Rothschild, also Professor of Theology, who served as a speaker at the 387th meeting of the Chicago Society of Biblical Research on October 22nd, held at the Lutheran School of Theology at Chicago. Her presentation was called Introducing Paul, a Contribution to the Early History of the Latin Prologues to the Pauline Epistles. The College of Business Accounting Club members participated in the 2022 Institute of Management Accountants Student Leadership Conference on October 20th, 22nd in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. A great trip. I just spoke with the professor who they went with yesterday, and it was a very positive trip. They received tips on their journey from the classroom to the boardroom, learned the latest industry trends in accounting, and met with recruiters from well-known companies looking to fill internships and full-time positions. And finally, Lewis's own Institute for Catholic and Thessalian Education presented the 2022 Bishop Roger L. Caffer Award to Carol Berlinski, principal of St. Isaac's Catholic School in Hinsdale. The annual award recognizes a Catholic school principal in the Diocese of Joliet for visionary leadership. Berlinski was surprised with the award. I was there. Dr. Livingston was there, along with several other people from Lewis. when at a mass, at the morning mass of the high school, we surprised her with this honor and a really lovely presentation. So it was a great day, and it was held at the as I said, the St. Isaac Jogues Catholic Church in Hinsdale. I believe we have one other announcement, I guess, which is about an event coming up called Kill a DJ. I think we have a slide. So WLRA needs your help in honor of advocating for Children's Hospital. And that annual fundraiser starts on November 4th at noon with a 24-hour live broadcast. So maybe I'll say this now, since I always forget at the end. It's wonderful student members of the broadcasting department who help really put on this show, are doing this wonderful annual fundraiser and called Kill a DJ, and we really appreciate that. All of the station's DJs will be raising money and hosting radio shows for 6 hours. Some will be having shows that are much longer, including that 24-hour show. So please visit WLRA Radio on Instagram or WLRA Radio Station on Facebook for more information on how you can donate to that really great event. So some other events coming up. Tonight at 6:30, Ms. Kathleen Giblin presents a speech on the impact of social media with Delta Sigma Pi, hosted by Delta Sigma Pi. Also tonight, the Didar Art Collective Gallery Talk will take place in the Art Gallery, and that show has just begun there. And then Saturday, November 5th, from in the morning, we have our annual Pumpkin Pitch Contest, which is a great collaboration between our Sustainability Club, our Department of Physics, who creates the catapult that catapults the pumpkins and so on. And so if you haven't seen it, it's a really fun event, and please come out on Saturday morning for that. And then next week, or Sunday night, we have open mic night at the Studio Theater. And on Monday, Andrew White, who is a opera vocalist, will be performing, a very distinguished national figure in opera, will be performing in the Borromeo Center on Monday night. And then finally on November 10th at 4 p.m., two poets, Hadara Barnadav and Ananda Lima, will be giving a poetry reading hosted by the Jet Fuel Review. On the athletic front, we have some great competition going on this weekend. Men's soccer competes tomorrow morning, 11 a.m. at Maryville against the University of Indianapolis in the GLVC semifinals. So they will compete on Friday morning and may continue on for the championship this weekend there in Maryville. Women's basketball has its first exhibition match tonight, or Friday night at 5 p.m. against North Central College. Men's and women's cross-country teams are competing in the GLV championships this weekend. Saturday at Principia. Men's and women's swimming is home here on Saturday morning at 11 a.m. Against Olivet Nazarene, and women's volleyball completes its regular season on Saturday afternoon in St. Louis against Missouri St. Louis. So Saturday morning, if you're on campus, pumpkin catapulting followed by swimming. You can do both before noon and have a great morning on the Lewis campus. So we're really excited to turn our attention to our focus for today and to speak with our guests. Before I introduce them, I'd like to remind you that the askus@lewisu.edu email address is there on the screen, and please feel free to send questions while you're watching. If you're watching live, we'll try to get them answered during the show. If you're watching from YouTube and still have a question, please also use the askus@lewisu.edu, and we can direct the question to the best person to answer that question. So I'm really pleased to have two guests today, and I'll introduce them both, and then we'll have a conversation. So first, Dr. Ryan Phillips, who is the Department Chair of Aviation and Transportation Technology. He is a Doctor of Education in Adult and Higher Education, a certified flight instructor, a commercial multi-engine pilot, and he's been at Lewis since 2011. He is joined by Ahmad Salah, who is a student at Lewis and a certified flight instructor for about a year now. He's also a commercial multi-engine pilot and Lewis Aviation Safety Committee member. He'll graduate with his bachelor's degree in December and will continue at Lewis with in a master's degree program that we can talk about. He's also a Republic Airways ambassador, which I'd like to hear more about as well. So welcome to Ryan and Ahmad. It's wonderful to be with you and to have some time to talk with you today. Our aviation program is a really big part of Lewis, as we all know. The Flyers is our mascot. Lewis was founded as an aviation school, so it feels like we talk about it a lot, but I think this might be, in the 3 years we've been doing this, the first time we've really focused on aviation on this program. So I'm really excited to talk a little more depth. It's also really complex. So I guess maybe the first question for you, Ryan, would be, could you just maybe give us an overview of what all the different programs we have in the department and how they are distinguished from each other?
Yeah, absolutely. So we have 5 different programs. Our largest is our flagship, which is the flight program. Aviation maintenance is our second, and then we have an aviation administration major, unmanned aircraft systems. We had a supply chain management program that's now housed in the College of Business, air traffic control program as well, and then we have a graduate program, which you mentioned already. So the thing that I think it might be the least obvious about all of those, some of them I think I can picture, maintenance is maintenance and flight is flight, but what do students study when they study aviation administration? So we actually just overhauled that major, so it now has a core group of classes that focus more on the administrative side of the industry, but now students will be able to more individually tailor, what they want to do. So right now, students can go into an aircraft dispatch option. When we hop on an airliner, the pilots aren't the ones doing the weight and balance, determining how much fuel to use, those sorts of things. A dispatcher does that behind scenes. What altitude are they going to fly at? They really make all those decisions, and then the crew signs off on it when they go on a trip. So we have a really good aircraft dispatching program. It's largely been a minor up until this point. It's taught by a licensed dispatcher by the name of Jeffrey Leo, and was started by a United Airline dispatcher named Gary Altman. So that is one avenue that they have. There's a logistics option in there as well, and we're looking at unrolling a safety option too, where students could potentially get a safety certification and go into the industry more on the operations side. Largely before these changes, it was primarily more business administration, and that's still an option for the students as well, where we coupled with the College of Business, and students can take more of the finance side of courses and management courses.
And what are the types of jobs that people with that degree go into?
It's really all over. We've operations, crew scheduling. The degree is really geared towards critical thinking and helping students learn to pivot. So they're the ones, when they're sitting on an airliner, and this just happened to us, the crew timed out. So they had to quick shuffle in a new set of crew, and somebody's solving those types of problems. So that's just one example, the dispatcher option that we discussed. We're also looking at possibly rolling out an airport management focus. That includes everything from wildlife management, snow removal, keeping the airport operational, like the team here. It's the Lewis University Airport, but it's not run by Lewis University. An airport manager handles all that and does a great job.
I think a lot of times people think about airports and they think about O'Hare and Midway and nothing else maybe, and having the airport right next door here is a reminder that there are many airports like ours, although I know ours is pretty big, but there are a lot of small airports and people running those and operations going on, and sometimes even needing unique skills, because it is more kind of small scale and many people doing multiple jobs, and you have to have a kind of generalist understanding of
how an airport runs to be a manager.
For sure. So that's something we're looking into. We actually have our industry advisory board meeting, our second one tomorrow, and that's something we're going to be discussing with them. But yeah, our airport is considered a smaller general aviation airport, but I believe Ahmad and I were talking about this on the walk over here. We believe we might be the 4th busiest in the state for our number of operations, and the majority of those are attributed to Lewis University flight operations. So
yeah. I want
we're
to talk more
busy.
about that, but I want to get Ahmad into the conversation a little bit, so welcome again. And I just want to maybe know, as we get started talking a little bit, like how did you grow up locally, and did you know about, if you did you know about Lewis, and how did the decision making around attending a university for flight work its way through for you and your family?
Yeah, thank you for having me here. It's a pleasure to be here. And I was born and raised here in the Chicagoland area my whole life, Orland Park, Illinois, specifically. And when I was looking for an aviation program, of course, you hear about several, but there's not an abundance of programs you can find, all around you. And something that really stood out to me about Lewis is that it's close to home, but it's also had a excellent record with regards to safety and its graduation rate, and a lot of positives about the program. So when I was looking into a program to choose, this one was one that stood out more than anything to me.
Wonderful, that's great. And you're a flight student. Tell me a little bit about what it's like for student. What a day in the life of a flight student is. And maybe before becoming a certified flight instructor, and after, it's probably very different. So, I'd love to hear about that.
So this is probably one of the most exciting parts, going to training. It's something that you look forward to always, and being able to have an airport right in your backyard literally is something that we should really appreciate and not take for granted, for sure.
Yeah.
But a day in the life of a flight student, you might find yourself, I'm a commuter personally, so I don't live on campus, but you will report to the dispatch area when it's time for your flight block, usually a little bit before, and you would get an aircraft from the dispatcher, and you would head out early just so you can pre-flight inspect the airplane to get the airplane all ready for its flight and make sure there's nothing dangerous or anything that you see that should be looked at by maintenance. And as long as everything looks good, you'll go with your flight instructor out and you'll do your training session, and after you come back, you will sit with your instructor and actually go over what you could do better, what you did well, and what to look at for the next time. And that is just in the airplane or in the ground classroom doing your training, but there's so much more going on outside of just the flight department. You got to do your part at home or in your dorm of studying.
Right.
They say 65% of your pilot training is net ground knowledge you have to study, and the rest would be your flight training in the airplane. So it does take a lot from you as a student to do your part and do that studying in your own time as well.
Excellent. It just occurred to me that maybe, Ryan, we should define what a certified flight instructor is.
Yeah, absolutely. So a certified flight instructor is someone who's authorized by the FAA to provide the training. So our program here is somewhat unique. Our students go through from zero experience, and we actually require that certified flight instructor rating in order to graduate.
Okay.
Most collegiate programs will stop after the commercial certification with the multi-engine rating.
Okay.
We feel that for the best pilots are teachers, and so that's why we implemented that, and it's been great. It really allows our students to go from zero to hero, so to speak, you know, and like Ahmad here, and he moved right through the program too, so he's in a unique position where he's still a student, and now he's not having to pay to fly.
Often it sort of happens at the very end.
Right.
Or,
Most will finish in 4 years, and then we'll plug them in as CFI. That's the abbreviation for Certified Flight Instructor. But Ahmad's, we have many flight instructors who are still students as well.
Well, it makes perfect sense to me. I'm a professor. What used to be a professor, so I would always really understand what I was supposed to be an expert in on the day that I taught it. And also just as a parent too. Just explaining, talking through things with my kids. I'm always like, oh yeah, it really helps that they're asking me this question about something I assume I understand. So I just wonder what it's like. Like, does that resonate with you? You know, do you really learn from having to work it through with a more beginning student?
Absolutely. Something that I gain, and I think, you know, becoming a flight instructor should be something that everyone should do, is you are not as good as you think you are until you get to teach it.
Yeah.
When you teach something, it ensures that you know it very well. And I think that becoming a flight instructor for me was something that has prepared me for the rest of my professional career. I don't think I would have the amount of preparation and ready knowledge that I need to have without becoming a flight instructor. That was something that I think was a turning point in my career, in my training for aviation. So it's very, very important.
Yeah, I imagine, tell me if I'm wrong, but I just imagine it's the thorough, like I know it's a very checklist-oriented profession in the first place, but the, just the thoroughness that you have to cover when you're an instructor. You think you've learned everything when you're a student, but, you know, having to repeat like the comprehensive list of things that everyone needs to learn to get certified is probably good to be repeated over and over again, right?
Yeah, I mean, as they always say, a good pilot is never done learning, and I learn every single day. My students teach me every single day, you know, and learning is never going to stop.
Great.
It's very apparent if you didn't cover something as adequately as you should have.
That's right. You
It
see
gets
it
your
right in front of
attention
me.
very quickly.
Yeah, when
So
there's
yeah,
safety involved.
yeah.
You
so
notice.
like you said, every flight you're refining yourself.
Both of you, that reminds me, both of you mentioned safety at different times so far. I just wonder if we could maybe talk a little bit about what that really means, and how does a flight and an aviation department at a university maintain safety in conjunction with the airport, obviously, that it's working with.
Yeah, so we have implemented what's called a safety management system. All the airlines utilize them, the military. Essentially what that is it's a program that's designed to be proactive and identify possible hazards and those sorts of things that might be there and could become problematic. So we've really been growing that culture. Maud's on the safety committee, and the students, we have an anonymous safety reporting system in place. So when you see something that happens out there that's unsafe, you can anonymously post that, and then our safety team will take a look at these and address them. So case in point, we just had one, and we're working with facilities to address an issue where there's always been some mud kind of near the ramp because where the building drains.
Right.
We're hoping to rectify that because it's hard for a student to pre-flight there.
Right.
And while we don't want them to not, do what they need
avoid
to do.
it or whatever. Yeah.
So that's just one example that came out of our last meeting. So.
And you're on. There's a committee that you're on. I mentioned.
Yeah.
And how does that work? How does that committee work?
So the safety committee is simply, Lewis decided to take a number of flight instructors and some students as well to kind of give them some insight into the day-to-day operations that we face and things that we can help improve as well with our, faculty and staff, respective faculty and staff. And we meet once a month and we go over anything necessary, all the reports, as well as, future plans we want to safety. And the idea behind it is we want to prevent a hazard from occurring before something, does occur. And this is what we do in risk mitigation.
Right. And it also sounds like you're learning from things that do occur and trying to,
Absolutely.
Kind of follow through on that, just like a hospital would, or just about any effective organization does. And I really appreciate what you said, Ryan, about it being a culture. I feel like that gets reinforced in a lot of different contexts. I was thinking about cybersecurity in a meeting earlier today, and it's a lot of it is about the systems that we put in place, but much more of it is about people who work in an organization knowing how to play their part in maintaining safety and report things in the right way, and to know how their behavior impacts safety.
Yeah.
And so it sounds
Absolutely.
really reminded me of that when I was listening to you.
Yeah, and it's important for us to get everybody on the committee and involve students and flight instructors, so that way there's buy-in across the board.
So I've got a couple questions come in through the email. One is probably for you, Ryan. How does our flight program differ from ones that are not connected to a university?
Four-year program like Lewis is certificated under a set of regulations that we call Part 141 regs. These are regulations that are geared towards students who want to be professional pilots. So for some of the certifications that a student gets, the time is actually reduced a bit, but the training is more rigorous. So that's all the large programs in the country typically operate under. If you went to like a local airport flight school, most of them are probably operating under what's called a Part 61 set of regs, and that's geared more towards people who have a little more time. It's going to take more time to get through the training. So that's one of the big differences. This is also approved as a school. I'll explain what that is. It's our ATP. Like for a flight instructor, typically the next part of their career trajectory would be to go to the regional airlines or corporate type setting. In order to fly at a regional airline, you need what's called an air transport pilot certificate.
I see. Okay.
That certificate takes 1,500 hours to obtain. A student like Ahmad, when he got through about 250 hours, so you need to build your time to get to that point. A restricted ATP hours off of that 1,500 hour requirement. So our students who go through the to test for that certification with another large difference between a four-year university and say like a local, let's say like a local airport versus
In their own time.
yeah, most.
That's really helpful. Even though people ask me that all the time. That's great. So I guess I'm curious, Ahmad, I'm assuming you didn't have a flight experience before coming here?
Nothing.
Surprising thing that happened? Like not like weird thing that happened, but like what's, in terms of what you pictured, would is like, what's the biggest thing? Okay.
Everything. You know, going into this this career, and it's something that's different than you hear of a classic job. Of course, that alone already gives you this mentality of very fun, it's very exciting, but something that and just like any job, it's a lot of work, and you got and it's bumps on there, but you have to keep your mind. I was expecting, but didn't expect how much it would be, and something that I appreciate more now that I look back at it.
That's interesting. Talk about that.
Programs 14, and then we are also actually towards programs at Lewis. The flight maintenance program. Been very. The Will County program has been. I think this is. We're just kicking off here. Yeah, so it's been very. Shows them the what aviation is. The 214 program, we actually have a hangar that we rent out of Chicago Executive Airport, formerly known as Pewaukee Airport. So they're bused right to the airport, and they get to experience it and be immersed. And then the Will County Career Center, we're neighbors with, they come to our campus in the morning and take part in their labs and go back.
So in both cases, the high school students are getting hands-on experience at an actual airport.
Correct.
Basically,
It's
yeah.
about full immersion.
Yeah,
So.
and I've been to that Chicago executive campus. I know it's probably changed a little bit, but you know, taking a maintenance class in a hangar, you know, with planes that are being used later in the day, and you know, it's just must be just an amazing experience for those students.
Yeah, feedback's been very good. Yeah.
I don't know. I know that. I don't know if it's how much time you've spent in these high schools, because you know, we have people working more directly there, but I'm just curious how they come. You know, you might have perspective on this too, Ahmad, but you know, how much knowledge do they have about like a maintenance career when they're a sophomore in high school, and you know, how does that kind of work its way through into enrolling in a dual credit program?
Yeah, and so a lot of these districts will have like pathway programs, which is important, and school districts that don't, we try to get our team out to career fairs and all those sorts of things and just talking to students. One of our big initiatives too is to try to show students who maybe don't have the same privileges like I did, for example, that this is an awesome field that they could aspire to you know, to be a pilot or a maintenance technician or unmanned systems operator. So it's important to get out there. We have some camp programs during the summer as well. We have ACE Camp, which has been shelved for the last 2 years with COVID, and it's coming back this summer, and that one's geared towards students from inner city Chicago, so we're really excited to see that coming back too. And
that's great.
Yeah, so those are it's about exposure and just showing them what they could possibly do someday.
Yeah, so a lot of that is the professions that people go into, and the types of, you know, trying to visualize the work that they're going to be doing when they graduate from Lewis or another aviation program. So maybe we could talk a little bit about that. You know, you mentioned you have an industry. I forget what you said. Advisory board. You know, and I'm assuming they're, you know, employers from around the region in aviation. So what are you hearing from them? Or maybe first I'll say, what kind of jobs do our students go into, and then what are you hearing from those industry people?
Yeah, I'd say that the majority of our flight students are targeting the airlines, but we also have some looking at the military and general aviation side, which is corporate flying. Also great options. Maintenance too. General aviation has a lot of opportunities for employment and that, but the majority are probably hitting the airline path for maintenance as well. So our air traffic control program too, they're doing internships here in the Chicagoland area. They're not getting exposure in a tower out in the middle of a cornfield. It's busy airspace. So they're really going all over, you know, the world. So it's exciting to see. The industry is red hot right now, and it's really driving a lot of things. It's creating some challenges, but it's also providing opportunities for students like Ahmad to, I mean, there's signing bonuses now at airlines, a lot of things that have been unprecedented.
Yeah.
So our advisory board tomorrow will be focusing on exploring some other avenues, you know, more additional avenues for the unmanned systems for all the majors, but we also want to start to zero in on things that aren't necessarily just airline centric.
Right.
Yeah.
Very interesting. And are there typically ebbs and flows in the market for jobs and things like that, or has it been steadily growing over time, or what's you know, you've been doing it a long time.
Yeah.
What have you seen over
No,
the years?
absolutely. It's a stock market trajectory, generally upward trending, but overall, we're definitely in a heavy flow state for sure right now. And but you know, this growth is projected to kind of go into the mid 2030s. It's never been this robust that I've seen, and I've seen both sides of it.
Yeah.
So, yeah, right now the demand is exceeding the supply for industry professionals, which is great for university programs, but it's also a challenge.
And I guess I want to ask about how, you know, so people are watching who maybe are thinking about applying to Lewis, or current students, and you know, we have a lot of people change majors at Lewis. So like every university, it's a very common thing. How do people does that happen? Do they change from, do they come as a flight student and change to maintenance, or and what are the types of things that they're learning, I don't know, along the way, or what you're hearing from your peers out there in terms of, what goes into those decisions, and do they discover unmanned systems and didn't really know about it until they got here, or what have you?
Yeah, I think one of the biggest things that even like myself was a pleasure and a shock in a good way to see is just how many fields there are in aviation. It's not just pilot and maintenance. There's air traffic control, there's management, and there's dispatch. There's so many more careers in aviation that you probably don't think about before going into it. Most people just see on the outside pilot and maintenance, but they don't know how much, like Dr. Phillips said, how much really more goes into aviation. And a lot of people, when they come and they see this, they have, maybe I think might like this a little bit more, or I might like this a little bit more, and it just suits their needs a lot more.
Yeah.
And all the majors too are very similar at the beginning.
Yeah.
And that's by design. So when a student does decide, I thought flying was for me, it isn't, they usually pivot into one of our other majors. So our retention is extremely high within the department for that reason. So yeah, if you switch majors even 2 years in, it doesn't mean you're starting over. Many of those credits will plug into your new major.
And then I guess I want to also ask the inverse of that question about people transferring in. So aviation is a big part of Lewis, but it's a pretty large university with 6,500 students and all kinds of other majors, and people come to Lewis who drive onto campus for campus visit day and go, oh, do they have an airport here? Like they really have no idea.
Yeah.
And so if somebody starts as a history major and they think, oh, maybe I want to be a pilot. Is that possible, or is it?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, we have a handful who do switch over from outside of our department. It is possible. The biggest challenge, as Ahmad can attest, is getting through all those certifications.
Right.
Because there's things at play, weather, slows your progress down. When you enroll in a math class, it's going to start on this day and conclude on this day. And regrettably, with flight training, there's a lot more variables. Mixed in there. So for someone who transfers in, the big challenge is trying to get through all those certifications. So we encourage transfer students to stay and fly during the summer months. It's a great time to get caught up or ahead.
Yeah, that's great.
And that helps out a lot.
That sounds great. Both of you have mentioned air traffic control a little bit, so I noticed there's a new tower at the airport. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, so this airspace has largely been what's called uncontrolled airspace. It doesn't mean unregulated, it just means that there hasn't been a control tower. And the ribbon cutting for that is November 14th. It's right here, here on the field. And then it's slated to go into operation in December. So this airspace will then go to what we call Class Delta airspace.
Okay.
So it's similar to Aurora, DuPage, Chicago Executive, same type of airspace. So that is largely a result of the number of operations an airport handles, and there's a lot of corporate traffic in and out of here, but Lewis is a large part of that as well with our number of operations. So.
Yeah, so you mentioned it's the 4th biggest airport in Illinois, is that what you said?
That's size-wise, but I believe that's correct for in terms of how many cycles and airplanes it handles,
And so that obviously is a factor, but how does an airport go about getting a air traffic control tower?
A lot of this was driven by the Joliet Port Authority, and it's just the demand. There's so much happening here. Essentially, it's like, hey, almost like an application to the government.
It's
like,
a federally funded project.
Yeah, correct. Yeah. And then they look and go, there are a lot of operations in and out of here, and it's about enhancing safety and the flow of traffic. So we're excited to see it going in. It'll also give our students even more exposure to the control tower side of the industry. Because right now we sequence ourselves in and out of the airport. We're talking to each other. Ahmad and I will say, hey, I'm number 1 for landing. I'm number 2. I'll follow you. And that's all about to change. The control tower will be telling us what to do. Yeah.
That's really going to change things.
It will.
And also, I'm going to come back to this topic in a second. What about air traffic control students? Are they going to benefit from this?
We're hoping so.
Yeah.
Our director of the program, his name's Mike Julius, and he's a retired controller. He's worked the Chicagoland area. He's an awesome guy. He's got some great ideas. You know, we're hoping that maybe we can plug into this tower, and even just having some of our AT students not control the airplanes necessarily, but maybe even help out, do office work initially, something along those lines, because it'd be really cool if our students could intern at the tower on our own field.
Yeah,
so,
that seems...
so those are some things that, we've been talking about, but we need to have some sit-downs with the tower directors, manager when this does open, and see if there's something there that we could help them with. And it would also benefit our students.
Yeah, I know it's really early days, but it does seem like a great opportunity. And then I just want you to, maybe either one of you could maybe talk through what you were saying about how the tower is beneficial to efficiency and you know, just managing the control of the aircraft both on the ground and in the air.
You know, the control tower, as we said, it's really needed. Alone, if you just look at Lewis operations, we have about, I think it's 28 aircraft or 27 aircraft, and most of those aircraft are flying every hour, and that requires a lot of coordination from our side to manage the flow of traffic in and out of the airport, and that is not including having to, you know, manage random corporate jets that come in without us knowing, right? And then we have to, you know, mold and be able to handle that. And I can safely say that we've been doing a very good job maintaining it safely on our own, but it comes a time where it's very necessary to have an outside source to be able to maintain that flow of traffic as we continue to grow. And that's going to really help with regards to everyone entering the airport and leaving at the same time as we have at the beginning of our flight blocks, the end of the flight block, we have everyone coming in and out at the same time. So it's going to be very important for that safety, getting us in and out of the airport safely with other traffic that's not Lewis as well.
That's really helpful to understand that. And then Ryan, I think so it hasn't started yet, so that'll be a great benefit to us when it starts. And are there other things we're doing? Because we are, it is a busy time. There's a lot of students as we've grown. Challenges, I'm sure, with, as you mentioned, in the industry with supply chain and things like that. What are some other things we're doing to improve efficiency or tempo, I think is the way
operational tempo. Well, one, the university is agreed to purchase some slightly used aircraft, one of which is on its way back from California today. So adding to the fleet will definitely help. Like you said, some of the supply chain issues are related to engines. An aircraft can only fly about 2,000 hours before it needs a new engine, and once it hits that mark, you have to keep it grounded. So we've been working through that. So we're looking at ways to even better maximize our current flight schedule, but adding aircraft to the fleet will help with that. We also have a fueling trailer that should be arriving very soon, so that will allow flight operations to not have to fuel their own aircraft anymore, so they can literally fly for hopefully another 0.2 hours per operation and park the aircraft, and then we'll have a line crew that will actually fuel the airplanes. And then we're working on getting a aviation operations manager to help manage the schedule and the dispatching of aircraft, so we can ensure that if this aircraft is going to go down for maintenance, then we'll place the emphasis more on these aircraft. And we're doing those things, but as the operation continues to grow, it's important to get someone who is able to look at the big picture all day, every day, and make those decisions on how to better utilize everything. So that's an ongoing search, and we've got some solid candidates in that pool, so we should have that filled here shortly as well.
That's excellent. I just have a couple more questions. We're about done with time. I guess I want to ask about the unmanned aviation systems. Is that what it's called? I always get that wrong.
Correct.
How is that going? Where do they fly?
So that program, really, if you just watch the news, there's a
it feels
lot
like,
of excitement.
I just want to tell you, the questions I get from people I talk to, it's all about that.
Yeah.
Like that's what everybody
is.
asks me about, and I think, well, we have our flight programs like a lot
Yes.
bigger. Let me tell you about, but,
Yes.
but
And
everyone wants to know about.
I truly feel
drones.
that program is about to explode here
Uh-huh.
at Lewis just because of the push in industry.
Yeah.
I mean, a few weeks ago, I had the opportunity to ride in an electronic vertical takeoff and landing. eVTOL is what it's called. And I was unable to go, but I believe it took off out of Schaumburg and flew to the Vertiport in Chicago.
Yeah, I know that's.
And
I think we saw that at the air show. One
yeah,
of those things.
and,
yeah, it's
and you just imagine hopping in that and going downtown
Yeah.
and looking down at the gridlock and not
Yeah.
being part of it, right? But people need to maintain these, to build them, to operate them, and Professor Reed oversees that program. He does an amazing job, and we're constantly looking at ways to, that major alone is probably the one that's undergone the most curricular changes
Sure,
over the
yeah.
last few years, just because
It's
the
changing so
technology is
much,
changing
yeah.
so quickly.
Yeah.
And that will continue. So that is a great field to be going into. The FAA told us too that they're wrestling with the regulations of certifying these aircraft and then
Right.
who's going to maintain them. And
Yeah.
so there's probably going to be opportunities there for our maintenance students
Right.
to do that, the latter,
Yeah.
and then our computer science engineering programs
Yeah.
plus unmanned systems. I mean, they're going to be the ones designing these and building them.
Yeah, it's one great thing about Lewis is this real strength we have in computer science, and
Absolutely.
seems like it's really these two programs are really coming together in
Yeah,
a way
and-
that we can't even really foresee yet, but we will see a connection.
No, for sure. I mean, it's great just because the amount of collaboration that we do have with Comp Sci and other departments is great, and it really helps strengthen the programs.
So last question, Ahmad. Whenever I go over to the building, to either of the buildings, I always see a lot of fun being had, community, especially around dispatch, but, really, everywhere. And, it just seems like there's a really strong community in the department. And we didn't talk about clubs. We have several different specific clubs and competition teams around, I'm just wondering from your perspective, like what is that like from a student's perspective? And
Honestly, they always say aviation, as big as it really is a small community. It's and you get to know everyone on a personal level, and myself and all my colleagues. And I come here, and this is like another home for me. I think I spend more time here. I think I spend more time
Yeah.
here than my own home, just out of love of being here.
yeah,
But you really do grow a connection as a student first when you come in as a student, to getting to know so many of your peers and eventually, hopefully, your colleagues as well.
yeah,
And these clubs are a great way for that to happen. We have the ALPA ACE Club, we have the Women in Aviation, we have Flight Team, we have a lot of programs that really are there to suit your needs as a student and grows your connections, because connections are really important as well to have.
yeah.
So it's a big family here. That's what I realized.
Yeah, and this larger network that you're talking about beyond our I mean, I asked it and you answered it in the context of it's just being a student is fulfilling in a really holistic way or a rich way, because you build these friendships that are going to be for a lifetime. But you also just reminded me it's a small community where there's air shows and a network, and you're connected to these communities where future employers are, and it's all kind of the same family. I'm sure that's been your
Yeah.
experience in your career. But
Oh, for sure. This group
Yeah.
that's coming in tomorrow, over half of them were my students, our
Yeah,
students,
right.
right? And it's cool. They're captains, and it's
Yeah.
really neat to see the kind of the full circle of what we're
Yeah.
doing here. So yeah.
All right. Well, thank you both so much. It's just amazingly important and meaningful work, as you just said. It's a huge part of our daily existence as people in America and in the world, to be encountering all the different parts of the program that we talked about, and then obviously for our place in the Chicago economy and so on. It's just a really significant program that's making incredible impact. So thank you.
Thanks for having
Thank you.
us.
Congratulations. I'll look forward to seeing you at commencement and then again when you get your master's degree.
Thank you.
So thank you, everyone. We will be off next week. President Livingston and I are both traveling to an international Lasallian conference, and I think the focus of the show in 2 weeks, we'll be on our international LaSallian community and with some guests who are professors working, with collaborating across the world with other LaSallian universities. So my very best to you. God bless you. Have a wonderful rest of the week.